we can go live. Check. How's audio?
Sounding good to me, Max.
So far, so good.
Oh yeah. Liviu, do you have the video open? I mean, for the stream?
Yes, I do. Looks okay. And I get the audio as well.
Oh, perfect. Then we can start up.
Yep.
Hello,
Are we
everyone,
live?
And yeah, we're
Yes,
live. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to our second season of SIP Chronicles. Today we have my good friends Liviu, Chircu, and David Duffett with me. And we are going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the SIP world, and as well as discuss Open SIPIT', specifically the event that we are organizing next month with the help of community and those two great gentlemen. Hello, David and Liviu. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you, Max. Very pleased to be here. This is my very first SIP Chronicles, and as you know, I'm excited to try and help out as I can.
Hi, Max, and thank you for the invitation. Exciting as always to be here. This is my second time on the Chronicles show, and I'm more than thrilled to talk about the latest things that are going on back over at the Open SIPs camp.
Great stuff.
All right. Well, David, want to ask some questions or
Yeah.
lead it?
Okay. Yeah, I'll be very happy to do that. And of course, you know, the overall purpose of SIP Chronicles is to be talking about all things SIP, but with a specific focus on Open SIPIT', the event and the website at OpenSIPIT'01. And what I wanted to ask first of all, Max and Liviu, and I'll go to Max first on this because I know that you're both involved in the first event. What is? I'm just thinking in case people are joining us for the very first time today, and they're not entirely aware of what Open SIPIT is all about. Could you give us a bit of an overview from your perspective? And I'll start with you, please, Max.
Oh yeah, thanks, David. It's a very good question, I guess. The whole idea of Open SIPIT' came a few years ago. It was we've been around SIP, both of three of us, I guess, for a long time. So in the early days of the SIP, there was a pretty interesting event called SIPIT', and it was interoperability testing event where they did get together a bunch of SIP vendors of various kinds and sizes and get them to test just regular SIP or some new extensions that AFT was working at the time.
Now, Max, is this the event that would at least sometimes happen in Monaco?
Quite possibly. I only been to the very last one of those, and it was in New Hampshire, but it was lovely. I liked the place and also the whole endeavor.
Right. Yeah, and I guess it's something that must have evolved over time, because in the early days of SIP, interop was pretty basic, wasn't it? Can you actually make calls and transfer calls? But in today's time where things have evolved quite fiercely, I guess you're into much more nuanced kind of thing. What sort of things were happening at the New Hampshire event that you went to?
Oh, I met, I think it was my first time meeting quite a few people that I knew from the mailing list and just participating in the community. I believe I met Joshua from Asterisk, and then obviously Oli was there driving the scene, and yeah, quite a few more people as well. And for us, it was quite interesting because it was, as I said, we really wanted to participate in this event, but it was not very kind of affordable, I would say, for a small company like us at that time, and we're still.
So are you saying effectively it was like a pay to participate kind of thing?
Yeah, a little bit. I guess it was not really pay to participate, but the whole cost of organizing it was kind of pushed back to the participants, which kind of probably makes sense at that time, and given the most participants were commercial vendors. We have people from like big telcos or big companies, and then some smaller vendors like people with all kinds of devices, like for example, some of those video devices that work with like doorbells and stuff. So it was quite interesting event just to see around, to meet people, and obviously we took our own product, SIP product there, and found quite a lot of interesting edge cases and bugs and all that. So yeah, it was definitely interesting few days.
Good.
I still actually have still have my badge.
Oh, well done, man. I thought you were going to pull out a small server running the SIP product you'd been testing for a minute there. So yeah,
it's in that other room. I actually have two machines which I took to New Hampshire. They're still
right.
until this day.
Now you said it turned out to be the last one. Was it planned to be the last one, or it just turned out to be the last one?
Yeah, I think it just turned out to be the last one. I believe at some point they decided, original organizers, of the event, decided that kind of job is done, or maybe they moved to some other venues of interest or something. But at some point we've seen this is basically stopping, and over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been a few times checking with Oli and asking him if there is any plans to resume this or in some form and shape, and offered some help as well. But that did not really go anywhere. And that's how we kind of decided, okay, nobody does it. We'll do it ourselves.
Yeah, and of course, by organizing it yourself, and of course, with it being an online event as well, the barriers to entry or to participation are much removed. And of course, the other thing that's very noteworthy to me is it's putting interop testing much closer to the heart of the community in general, rather than those people that can afford to play and afford to send teams out to wherever in America or wherever else. So yes, but please, I interrupted you, Max. Do give us a little bit more background to OpenSIPIt'.
Yeah, so OpenSIPIt', basically we try to do similar thing. We try to get people who implement new functionality or extending existing functionality in SIP stacks, open source SIP stacks, to actually get together and test this functionality against each other. Because what happens from my own experience implementing SIP protocols, usually test it against your own thing. So it's essentially and it leads to various biases, and you're not really, you don't have any source of truth in this case, or at least there is no way you can find if it only works with your implementation, essentially. So that's why we kind of try to get as many open source projects as possible to participate, because in our view that's where the most benefit from this comes from, when we get people working on the same functionality from different projects together and get them to test actual implementations, find what is not working and what is and believe me, I actually tested it in -1 event was between me and Liviu. I just started working on that new RFC to add several digest authentications, and we tried to compare it with Liviu just manually doing like verification, and he immediately found an issue in my in what I created just by looking at it. Yes.
This makes it a very good time to flip over to Liviu and ask him. But just before we leave you for a moment, Max, you mentioned your SIP product, which I know is a project. What were you talking about there?
Well, we have a commercial product which is mostly class 4 switching solution, which we developed for in support since 2006, and it uses a lot of technologies that open source created, open source community created. We use OpenSIPs, we use Asterisk, we use RTP proxy, and all that. So it's essentially kind of best. We take the best from open source and
right, so best of breed
wherever we can. On top of it, we try to release back components that we feel might be of benefit for other people or improvements for that matter. If we see something is missing in OpenSIPs, for example, instead of just doing it in private and keeping it to ourselves, we try to contribute it back to OpenSIPs in this case.
Right. And what is the name of your RTP offering? Because you have your own project for that.
Yeah, since 2004, I believe, we also developed RTP forwarder, which works with OpenSIPs, Camelio, and our own B2B, and it's called RTP proxy. It's basically helps people to control RTP, manage RTP essentially, well, while they manage SIP via OpenSIPs or some other proxy or B2B.
Great, good to know about that. All right, well, thank you for that, Max. So let's come over to you, Liviu. How did you get involved in Open SIPIt activities?
Interesting question. Actually, I don't have that much knowledge on the old Open SIP. No, what was it called? On the SIP SipIt'01 event, except some photographs with Bogdan and Anka. And I remember Bogdan saying they were doing a lot of presence testing because during those years, OpenSIPs was growing its presence implementation, so obviously they headed over to SipIt to test it out with various vendors and whatnot. And as far as the revamped version of SipIt', it started with Max, like he was saying earlier, last year when he was working on the RFC 8760 implementation that if for you, David, or anyone watching that is not familiar with that RFC, it basically says that the existing SIP authentication is getting a little bit hackable. So since MD5 is a weak hashing mechanism, maybe some passwords could get reverse engineered nowadays, and the SIP RFCs have to grow as well, and we need to move forward to a better hashing, basically longer. That's how you make things secure, a bigger hash. So yeah, it's that simple. So of course, on the implementation side, it's not all too simple because Max's pull request, which he just released a few days ago, has like 300 commits. So it is exciting stuff. So I can't wait to see it in place. But getting back to the SipIt, we worked on that a bit, and basically one half of our objectives during the event were to test that one out, and the other one was with StirShaken. So we had released OpenSIPs 3.1, and the OpenSIPIt came right along. during the OpenSIP or right after the release, and we took some big steps in testing that as well and making sure it is easier to interop with other projects. Actually, the event helped us discover quite a bit of how should I say it, inwards thinking things we were doing, and when it came to seeing how well it played with other software, we ran into all kind of little annoying quirks, such as that this should be a SIP URI, or a Tel URI, but not a SIP URI, or some header quirks that essentially got us stuck for a couple, a couple of hours. So
right.
There is nothing but good things to come out of these events, and solid bug fixing to be had. So I'm very looking forward to it.
Great stuff. And I would like to speak a little bit later about some of the underlying reasons, when you do find a lack of interop for whatever reason, what it turns out to be. But before we get to that, and before we speak about the upcoming Open SIPIt event, of course, Open SIPIt is only as good as the organizations and the projects that participate in it. And we've heard we got SIPI soft involved with RTP proxy and things, but OpenSIPs is involved as well. Can you give us a bit of an update about the project just generally at the moment, please, Liviu?
Great question. Well, we're as we've always have. We are basically the development of the project and all of the features that are flowing in with each year. If for the viewers that don't know, we make yearly releases in OpenSIPs, and every 2 years we make a long-term supported release, an LTS. If you're familiar with Ubuntu or all of these operating systems, they follow a similar philosophy, and we basically try to put in more features into the let's say odd version numbers, right? With and the even ones are slightly more geared towards stability and maybe some of the less invasive features. So with regards to that and the planning for this year, there have been a lot of upvotes. We basically hold a poll, maybe in late November or so, where we gather feedback, like what would you like to have in the new OpenSIPs? What do you feel like is missing? Or
that particular thing has always impressed me. It's always impressed me, the kind of democracy that there is in terms of the development priorities.
Yeah, because after all, what could be a better feature to put into the software than a feature that is wanted by many more people? So I guess it makes all the sense in the world to do it like this. And there have been a lot of upvotes on the Tls implementation because there have been some issues with Open SSL, or if to give a quick background here, Open SSL is the library that we are using to encrypt the SIP connections in OpenSIPs, and within the last years, they have been slightly changing their APIs to the point where they are not that suited to multi-process architectures, and OpenSIPs is a multi-process software, and so you may run into issues if they make changes to that layer. So due to all of these growing complaints, we decided to make a shift, or rather not throw OpenSSL completely, rather give an alternative. Let's also support Wolf SSL. And if you didn't notice, Vlad already has pushed in the work on some big work on that side. And we are very excited for what's up next, because we will also work on the TLS side of things and integrate that one as well. Currently, we started with the internal replication support. Yes, was there a question?
Yeah, I was about to ask there, Liviu, whether that SSL and the Wolf stuff that you were mentioning was underlying technology for TLS.
Yes, we started with the cluster communication in OpenSIPs. So to make a first integration, or maybe some baby steps in that direction. So that is completed, and then the next part is to integrate all of the TLS communication and all the possible, I guess, code paths where it can be called from. So
okay, and what version of TLS are you currently supporting in OpenSIPs?
Well, I guess it's up to the OpenSSL version, right? Because we wouldn't. I believe I would say we don't support 1.1 anymore, but maybe I'm talking. I don't want to say something that's.
I think I read somewhere that 1.1 had totally died off, hadn't it?
Exactly. So I would say that we don't support it anymore. It's better to start with So I guess we start from 1.2.
Okay.
So Liviu, just to get back to that question of Wolf SSL, I had a question for you, if I may. Is it so right now? What I guess what you're saying there, SIP TLS is still will go through the Open SSL, right?
We will provide both options. So you will get to pick between either using the OpenSSL library or the Wolf SSL. That is the plan.
Oh, okay. What is it currently implemented, or is it something you're just working on now?
We are working on that, but we have the design done, and it's just a matter of time until we will. The plan is to have this ready within the beta release.
I see. Well, in that sense, I'm not sure if we will be able to fit it into this OpenSIPIt, but perhaps at some point it probably makes sense to put the Wolf SSL based TLS for some future OpenSIPIt, just to make sure it works just as well or even better maybe. But
I mean,
just suggestion.
In a way, you guys have got two very different sets of problems, haven't you? Because you've got at Liviu's end, it's the TLS and the underlying technology there. But on your side, Max, well, thinking specifically of RTP proxy, you're probably thinking of SDES and RTP and all those kinds of things.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that. Well, in a sense, our current approach is we leave it to the endpoints to negotiate in a way. Unfortunately, it does not work very well with the DTLS. So yeah, there is some more work that we are still hoping to do sometime on RTP proxy side to support it better.
Okay, now just coming back to you, Liviu, had we exhausted the current state of OpenSIPIt? I don't think we had we?
But not at all. Basically, we talked about one feature.
We can talk for this for hours.
Yeah, yes. Okay. I don't want to spoil to make too many spoilers, because the release I may take stuff out of the release, but already we have pushed a Kafka consumer, so also that had a big a number of upvotes from the community, and we thought that is definitely going to be a plus with all the integrations and event-driven architectures that are being built into the cloud and whatnot. And also, speaking of cloud, there's also Prometheus integration now. Prometheus, if you're not familiar with it, is a time series database, and it is more than suited to store all of your statistics, so real-time statistics from OpenSIPs, whether it be number of calls or all kinds of customer statistics, whatever. All of it is customizable, and you can then, once the data is in the database, you can graph it out using your preferred interface tool, such as Grafana, or I guess they've made a new stack now. I'm not sure if I recall the name. I've just seen it, how it looks. It's something with anyway, I'll make a fool out of myself. Something with capacitor or something like that. It's
Right.
funky names.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure which is the the newest one to use, right? Do we still stick to Grafana, or do we move to? Yeah. Speaking of hardware that moves fast, right? The software moves just as fast. So also we've made some additions to the dynamic routing module, where now you can merge multiple rule tables. Or there are okay. So I'm getting, I guess, into some small details now. So as far as what is still on the to-do list, and we are definitely pushing for it to make the May's release, is some new manipulation mechanisms for the SDP parameters, because what we've had up until now are these regex based ways of manipulating an SDP in OpenSIPs, where I guess the limitation is that you can't do too many of them. This is
getting ugly very quickly, though.
Exactly. This is a different discussion, but it essentially boils down to a core mechanism in OpenSIPs, which is, let's call it lazy changes mechanism. So the changes are not done into the SIP message immediately, rather they are recorded as a series of changes. So if you do too many of those regex changes to the SDP, you have a good chance of causing a broken SIP message when you send it out. So
and nobody likes a broken SIP message, do they?
Yeah. So the purpose of this rework is to, or rather, let's call it a rework, right? Because it's to reinvent how we manipulate SDPs in OpenSIPs and get rid of these problems once and for all. So that is a big one and a much awaited one.
Good stuff. So it sounds like there's a lot going on, and as Max said, we could spend all of the call talking about all of the updates that you've got.
But on the end, sorry, David, to interrupt. I could add a few things that I personally worked on. They're more on community, no, not community, more on organizational side. But Liviu has been given quite a lot of help and good suggestions along that work to make it happen. We're basically working on extending the automated continuous integration system for OpenSIPs to run first more through more variants of builds. So right now, I believe we build against at least 3 major releases of Ubuntu, which is 16, 18, and 20. Plus, we also built against multiple architectures. So the code is automatically built on like AMD64, which is
it's interesting that you should mention this stuff, Max, because of course this is a whole different category of interoperability, isn't it? We're talking about OpenSIPIt and the 2 SIPs coming together to do stuff, but there's a number of hurdles to overcome before you even get to that stage. So sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's totally cool. But and then we also built on some exotic architectures as well, such as MIPS and ARM32. Well, ARM32 is not exotic yet, but it's kind of getting extinct or at least moving into that direction.
Yeah.
But I guess that also kind of good improvement, because it gives OpenSIP's team little bit of at least help to find and fix issues earlier, and don't let them to go into production and fix them later. But anyway, this is ongoing work, and we're still have not really done everything that we want to. But hopefully after OpenSIPIt, I will have a little bit more time, Liviu, to push that through a little bit further. Because I have a branch, if you've seen, where I actually run your unit tests automatically as part of GitHub Actions. But anyway, there are some challenges. No, not challenges, but I don't know, David, if you heard about that whole Travis CI going.
Sorry, Max, I didn't. If I'd heard about which?
Travis CI, the continuous integration platform. It was pretty popular among open source projects because I believe it was one of the first which offered open source projects to run for free tests and continuous integration. And I think Liviu built quite a lot of that for OpenSIPs, and then I came along and we expanded it a little bit more. But then the whole somebody bought the company, and they basically said, "Oh, we cannot give it so much time to open source projects." So it was a little bit of
they basically started rationing, your compute time in order to make these free open source builds. So,
not very helpful.
Yes, what was the unit of measure? Was it measured in minutes, or I'm not sure what it was?
Yeah, some minutes or whatever.
Minutes of build. Yeah.
By the way,
I believe we ran out of those minutes in just a day or two of normal kind of activity on OpenSIPs. Because every time, let's say you have active projects like OpenSIPs, pretty much every day there is like probably, I don't know, 10 changes or 20 changes pushed, and each of those changes needs to go through the whole build.
So that will trigger 20 builds. Yeah.
Goodness, I had to nip away, by the way, gents, because I felt very bad not wearing a T-shirt from an open source event.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What have you got?
So I got Clucon in the end, straight
Clucon.
Straight out Clucon.
Nice. I have the FOSDEM from the last month. It actually it arrived just yesterday, and I'm very
good stuff.
Yeah.
And I noticed that Max had got his OpenSIPs Summit T-shirt on. So yeah, I felt very out of place. So I had to go and do something about it.
It's a good addition.
Nice.
2017.
Well, speaking of that, at some point it would be nice if we can somehow get a budget around to print some T-shirts or anything.
Some open T-shirt. I mean, I think we all know that geeks like T-shirts, don't we?
Oh yeah.
Well, let's swing round a little bit and start talking about the upcoming event, because I think we've covered the background reasonably well, and also what's going on in OpenSIPs right now. We're grateful for that update, Liviu.
I can keep going if you want. Anytime. Yeah, sure.
Maybe we'll do that next part in SIP Chronicles 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
You got it.
We can do it.
The ongoing slot about the latest developments in OpenSIPs. But turning our attentions to this upcoming event that we've got on the schedule for 12th to 14th of April, isn't it? I believe.
Yeah. That's
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Before we start talking about the nature of the event of itself, let's just talk a little bit about the participation. Obviously, we got OpenSIPs that we're very excited about. and there'll be some SIPI Labs participation as well. What other participation have we got lined up, Maxim or Liviu, for OpenSIPIt'01?
So from my side, I have to advertise a bit Vlad's presence, because he will be teaming up with me, and we will be working on the stir, shake, and interop. And maybe, I guess Max is here. He can present the other ones, or shall I do it? Or...
Yeah, well, you carry on. Max has disappeared temporarily. I'm sure he'll be back.
Good.
Yeah, tell us about some of the others.
So from what I know, and actually, I could cheat a little bit and just open up the Google Groups page.
Right. Yes. Fair enough. Because it is quite a long list now. It's not like 2 or 3.
Exactly. There we go. So we have so from the free switch side, the signal wire side, we have Chris Rienzo and Mike
Jarris.
Mike Jarris. Okay.
Yeah. They're obviously from Signal Wire, but they're representing free switch.
I was getting there. Yeah. Sorry for
no problem
mixing things up. And we have the Enable Security team led by Sandro Gauci with Alfred. I'm not sure if I know his surname. Alfred.
Is it Cretain or Certain or something like that? Or am I getting mixed up with another Alfred?
Yeah, I only see emails here, so I apologize.
I may well be getting mixed up. But yes, Enable Security are definitely part of the mix. You said free switch. Asterisk, I believe, have been reeled in by Max, talking to Josh Culp, who's obviously a good SIP man from the Asterisk world, to be involved. And is there going to be Homer participation this time around?
I have not really got a chance to reach out to Homer yet, but I plan to. I'm just not quite sure yet how to fit them in, and also a little bit scared about it has been quite big already in terms of number of.
Right. Yes, it is getting quite large as well. And we've also got the guys from Camaillio being involved as well, and later on, Andreas is going to join us. Andreas from SipFront, who I believe is also participating or will be participating on behalf of the Camaillio team. So
that makes sense.
And it's it's just good to have everybody along, isn't it? But as Max says, although it's good to have a lot of people, we've also got to be careful with the number of participants as well to make sure we get optimum participation.
Yeah. In terms of QSIP, maybe you guys could suggest anything, but the idea I had of maybe offering them to... The problem is that they cannot really set up their capture outside of those instances. So just to give a background, we give each team an instance on AWS, and then we hook them up through the virtual network, local type of network, to send the traffic out. And the problem is that they don't really have, or at least have not figured out any way to tap into that LAN essentially to capture traffic. So what they can possibly do is to install something on the instances that we set up for provide to other teams and capture it on that end. But I imagine it can get a little bit complicated, especially considering that we are trying to focus on SIP specifically. But yes, if you guys have any ideas or suggestions.
Just moving down in terms of the list, Dractio are also going to be involved, aren't they, Dave Horton and Max?
I have a mention too. So finish your idea and I'll top everything off. Yeah.
Yes, well, I was just going to mention in terms of Dractio that I believe Dave played quite a major role in OpenSIPIt'01, Max.
Yeah. He was quite a good participant and very active, and he helped us a lot to keep it interesting by just implementing stuff up right on the fly between day 1 and 2. So yeah, we're definitely looking forward to have Dave with us again.
Right, and last but not least, there is Ole, right? Let's.
Yeah, Ole joined as well. I'm not sure if he's going to be probably at least somehow affiliated to the Camellia team, but it's, I guess, up for Ole to tell us. We were talking about Ole joining the list, and then is it everyone? Let's see.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay. Yeah,
we mentioned the Sangoma guys, right?
Yeah,
that's the asterisk.
Right.
Okay. Joshua, I invited him to drop in if he feels like it, and I'll include him and I'll invite. But from asterisk, and we have hold on, it was in one of those announcements.
Was it Ben Ford from memory?
Yes, Ben and the other gentleman.
G. Joseph.
Oh, yeah, George Joseph. Yeah.
George. Okay.
Okay, yeah, two good guys then from the Asterisk project. Excellent. And yeah, as we've already mentioned, Josh. Josh is really the Mr. SIP, or at least he was when I was more involved in the project there. Great news.
Did you see the picture I post on which I used for YouTube?
The thumbnail. I didn't see the thumbnail. I clicked on it, but I didn't realize what I clicked on. Oh, now I see it. So it's Max, myself, and is it another Max?
No, it's David talking.
Oh, it's David. Oh, okay.
He's talking on OpenSIP.
It makes sense.
2018.
I don't know. Where is this thumbnail?
If you go to YouTube, SIP Chronicles YouTube channel.
Right.
You can probably subscribe there.
As everybody should. Get to the SIP Chronicles YouTube channel where we're appearing live right now. And of course, this program will also be there for people to watch after the event as well. So we've talked about the participant list and we've confirmed that we've got all the kind of big hitters, if you like, in terms of the open source community around SIP. So that's excellent. And again, it goes to contribute to that feeling that we really are bringing interoperability testing much closer to the heart of the community. What sort of things are going to be going on? What sort of things are actually going to be tested on the interop side? I'll go to you first, Max, if you want to talk about the things that are at the top of your mind, and then we'll go over to Liviu.
Yeah, thanks, David. Well, first, we tried based on our past OpenSIPIt'. We're basically little bit over provisioned or over been too bold, I would say, with what we can achieve. So this time we try to not expand the agenda too much and focus on the stuff that we already kind of started with testing the last time around, which is RFC 8760, which adds better hashing methods into authentication. And on that RFC, we got at least several implementations right now in various stages. So last time we only got 1 or 2 when we just started. So essentially that should go pretty smoothly. Hopefully we will test what's already been working the last time, and then we'll test with the more projects like Asterisk and Free Switch was not very. We didn't go too much with the Free Switch last time as well. So we'll go over there, and obviously we're working on Open SIP's implementation, which I already mentioned. We'll get that a go. And then on the stir shaken, we will follow up on stir shaken, and that would probably take, I would say, reasonably 70% of our time or 60% of our time, because it's quite a big topic, and we expect a lot of this and that, and head scratching.
And what is the kind of top hit list within Stir Shaken that you're? I mean, obviously there's general interoperability, but are there any very specific things that you'll be trying to go through first to be sure of?
Well, I would not. I'm not very qualified at this moment to talk about this, frankly, because we're just as in the background we have some meetings set up for the next week with the great help from Free Switch community. Piotr has volunteered us to give us a little bit of his recent, and Piotr is the guy who implemented, I believe, Stir Shaken for the Free Switch. And also
You're thinking of Andre Volk? No?
Piotr, Liviu, what's
I don't know the surname, but it's Piotr.
Oh, sorry, Piotr Gregor. Sorry, I'm getting my names mixed up. Piotr Gregor. I know the exact one you mean. Yeah, great stuff. Yes, he actually did I think he did a talk at one of the recent ClueCons about that very thing. So good news.
Yes, but what he essentially what we agreed with him upon is that next week myself, Liviu, and Vlad, I believe, also expressed some interest from OpenSIP's project. Would get together and have a little bit of brainstorming session about what exactly we're going to do with stir shaken testing, and yeah. So after that, I might have a little bit better answer for you there.
Yeah, great. Good stuff.
For now, the focus was to obviously get all top open source projects in the SIP area to join, because that will provide the most value, we believe, for everyone.
Yes, that's got to be the focus, hasn't it? It's getting the relevant people involved to talk about these things and to actually do the implementations as well. So we've talked about the RFC, we've talked about Stir Shaken. Are those the main two things, or Liviu, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Maybe I could talk a bit about what I remember went not so smoothly, right, during the last OpenSIPIt, especially with regards to Stir Shaken, right? But apart from that, I don't have anything. So
yeah, please do.
As far as I remember, there were a lot of these little nuisances where there was a stopper when we tried to. I'm not sure whether we were building the identity header, or I think it was the other one where you verify an identity header built by the other party. And there were all sorts of things that were wrong before even you got to check the cryptography decrypt part. For example, I remember the very first thing was that we couldn't even generate. We didn't because there wasn't enough preparation for the event beforehand. we didn't have the tooling to generate the certificates for StirShaken, because it's not just your typical TLS certificate. They made a little extension that basically says this certificate asserts a list of numbers. It's not that big of a deal, right? But the whole point is to have to tie the certificate to a simple list of telephony.
Yeah, and isn't there a central authority somewhere involved as well?
It could be, but that's if you have the big bucks certificates, right? But the whole point was that we had a self-signed. We wanted just some self-signed ones, which you can, produce in the comfort of your own home.
No issues. We essentially needed to set up a little like fake certification authority, and there are a lot of quite a lot of teeny nitty-gritty details of how those certificates should, which algorithm they should use and all that, which we did not really have a clue about.
Exactly, right. There is some research ahead to be done. So, but I believe, sorry, finish your idea.
No, go ahead.
But I believe we will do a better job at preparing this edition, because we specifically aim for that. Whereas the last one, I believe the big goal was just to get everyone together and then see what we can do. And we have to figure out what are the test scenarios, for example, right? Yeah.
So that's one of the sorry to interrupt.
Well,
that's one of the plans for those follow-up meetings next week, and we'll see how that goes. If we need to have more of those, we'll definitely schedule some.
Yeah, what both of you are describing is, of course, the ongoing process of everybody meshing together to agree things, and that will only come through iterative work, won't it? Through doing them and refining them. And so very, very positive. Liviu, sorry, I had a bit of a brain moment there. You were saying, so you were talking about the things that didn't go so well,
right?
And the certificates were one thing.
This was the first one, and I believe this was the biggest time cost, the one that cost the most amount of time. Maybe even half of the time was spent on this one. And then there were some issues with our implementation being too strict, and this goes to show an interesting recommendation in pretty much all of the SIP RFCs. And they say you should be loose when receiving messages, right? Accept them even if they have maybe some broken bits, not too broken, but you get my point. Or maybe non-standard, or maybe some parameter is missing, whatnot. But on the outside, when you send SIP traffic, right, when your software sends traffic, it must be compliant or as strict as possible. So our implementation with StirShaken, or what it proved to feel like when you play with it in the wilds, was way too strict. It specifically said you have to give me a tel URI. The date must be very precise. It must. I mean, this one with the date, it's actually, I think it's a good one. But anyway, so there were all these little stops. But anyway, I'm not sure if I recall any other ones. There were these three issues.
Just as a general thing, and not even necessarily speaking about the last OpenSIPIt', or the first OpenSIPIt', I should say, 00 in September last year, but just in interop in general. So, whether it's experience at the commercial or more commercially orientated SIP event, or OpenSIPIt' last year, when you do find things that don't interoperate, you uncover issues. Is it more that people have kind of interpreted the RFCs differently, or is it that people have done things for their own commercial reasons that they then find don't fit in? What are the general things that you kind of uncover as the reasons behind the interop failures that you find?
I don't know. In our space, I more see people just making honest mistakes, and just from my general work on RFCs, as I mentioned before, usually it's a good idea to have at least somebody to review it and take a look and read the same RFC kind of with the fresh eyes, because we're all humans, we're all not perfect in whatever we do, so mistakes are made and stuff. Sometimes what is happening a lot, I think there is like all those tiny side notes and kind of, so you kind of, when you read the RFC, you kind of skip over it, but sometimes it has some
essential
pieces,
idea yes, that you're overlooking.
So
and then obviously that's one thing, and then obviously when you put two implementation together, it's getting even more interesting, because everybody has his own kind of way of implementing RFC. I would imagine people even might approach it like from like top down or down up top. So there's a whole lot of different ways you can screw it up.
So it is genuine mistakes from people that are playing or acting in good faith. It's not people that have kind of stymied stuff on purpose or anything like that.
Yeah, and then also a lot of those RFCs are not how to say, they're not to try not to be too specific. So a lot of things are still kind of left to the common sense to whoever implements it. So a lot of things you still need to kind of fill in between lines. So yeah, you can go wrong with that as well.
Hopefully not too many, right? But unfortunately, yes, you are right. In plenty of instances or
and then there is also requirements from specific software that you implement in this functionality too, which kind of also shapes your implementation in a way. So whatever you have, like if I implement something for Open SIPs, I will try to use whatever infrastructure is an Open SIPs to implement this functionality, but that might not be necessarily the same infrastructure.
Yes, there might be chain context. Yeah, I'm with you. Well, Liviu, you've spoken a little bit about things that kind of didn't instantly work out, but let's flip it round. Was there any kind of interop testing that did work kind of first time or second time?
We did get some great results on the testing of the new RFC that Max was
just
talking
remind
about.
Us of that number if you can.
8760.
Right.
It has been published since 20. Let me not make a fool of myself. Is it 2020? I think.
Yeah, it was last year. It was pretty fresh.
I think it's like last year. Yeah.
So you were pretty
March 2020. Yeah,
you were pretty quick on the uptake there to be testing something that has released then.
But David, that's kind of one of our kind of goals of this, except of obviously some tactical goals, fixing bugs and improving this and that. Also push those implementations a little bit sooner into open source space.
Yeah, but I think the thing that some people forget. Hi, Andreas. Good to meet you.
Hi guys. Hi.
We're just talking about an RFC at the moment, and I was just going to make the point, gents, that an RFC, of course, remains request for comment. So in theory, it's not a standard, is it? It might harden into a standard later, but initially, it's actually a request for comment. And so interop testing is exactly what you need to do so you can feed back those comments.
Yeah, That's right. Hey, Andreas.
Hey, I was following live stream already, so at least for the last 30 minutes, I had an idea of.
Yeah, hold on, Andreas. Let me just check that with you. You were following the live stream, and you still came in and joined us.
Sure. I got a request for comment from you guys, right?
Oh, it's good to have you along. So, Liviu, you were saying that there was things that had worked extremely well in the RFT.
Yes, if you can see it that way, the point was to see whether the currently written OpenSIPs, OpenSARE, whatever you name it, code is compliant with the upcoming RFC, which basically says there's going to be not only one authentication header, but 3. Each of them proposing different algorithms as a kind of a fallback. So basically, if your implementation isn't up to standard with the new RFC, you can use the dummy authentication header and still authenticate. So,
right.
So the question was, will it crash if we throw 3 headers at it? And it didn't crash, but it definitely wasn't picking the right one. It was since it wasn't, the original developers didn't see how there could be more than one header. They always went with the first header's value. So the problem was, okay, so what if the first header is the new one, and you have to dig for your the one that you can recognize all the way down. So we uncovered that bug during the OpenSIPIt' and fixed it actually live, I believe, and it went well then. Yeah,
that's exactly what this is all about, isn't it? The exact thing. Great stuff. Okay, well, now that you've jumped in, Andreas, thank you for joining us. We're grateful to have you along. Where is it you're joining us from geographically?
From Vienna.
From Vienna in Austria.
Yeah, exactly.
Top class stuff. Now, I understand that you're going to be participating in the Camaillio team in the upcoming OpenSIPIt', but you do have a SIP project of your own. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about that before we move on.
Sure. I mean, I was working with SARE, OpenSARE, Camaillio, like basically all my SIP life, essentially, which is already like over 15 years. Now I've been at SipWise for quite some time, but since it has been acquired some years ago, I left last year. And what I always wanted to do at SipWise back then was doing proper SIP testing, right? And this is also why OpenSIPIt' is pretty interesting for me. Now, the problem always was that I just didn't have a proper tool, right? I mean, they're like a proper test tool for SIP. I mean, there is SIP, obviously, and there are then CLI-based SIP phones that you can use, like BearSIP, for instance. But it was always a lot of tooling around that, and was always pretty difficult, to set up your tests, to create them, to run them, even to analyze the output of that. And when I left last year, that was basically one of the things that I always wanted to do, kind of automating in one way or the other SIP as a tool and bringing it into a modern world, essentially, right? Because SIP, it's complex, it has its XML scenarios, it has its CSV output, and if you run more of that, it's a pain to work with. So what I did is basically implementing MQTT support for that, to control it remotely, and also to get all the metrics in real time out of SIP remotely. And that worked actually pretty well. So I built a framework around that based on APIs in the web interface. So you now have essentially a GUI on one hand, where you can actually start your tests, define the input, making it very easy to run these tests, and have an API to drive them. And what's pretty interesting is, I mean, when you think about this kind of testing, it always starts pretty easy, right? You have one SIP instance and you just run this scenario. But if you think about that, it doesn't stop there, because usually you very quickly end up with at least 2 SIPs if you want to do a call, right? You have a calling party and a call party. And then there's another thing that you need to register first. So you have a third SIP instance somehow, and then you need to somehow start to control this, right? It got very complex very quickly. Yeah, in the end, like a full project came out of that, and I called it SipFront. And yeah, this is basically what I've been working on since a year. And the goal is really to make this kind of like a very accessible SIP testing tool for people to use. And I'm currently in the process of, since you were talking about GitHub Actions and CI integration some time ago, I was starting to think about this idea to, start integrating end-to-end tests into, for instance, into Camelio as a project. So because I had a very interesting testing experience just recently when I contributed some code to some Terraform provider. And I've never worked that much with GitHub, right, and with pull requests. And the nice thing there that I haven't seen before is really you submitted the pull request, and then it automatically went through, all these automated tests, right? And you got all these green checkboxes and so on. And I was like, wouldn't it be great if we could do something like that for our SIP proxy, like Camelio project as well? So when people contribute code, that it automatically runs certain predefined end-to-end tests, not only unit tests, but really just, set up Camelio instances as a proxy or one, and then start doing a certain number of cores, right? And the same goes for the release process that you say, if you, prior to releasing the project, wouldn't it be nice to run a list of long-running tests to just double check that we are not leaking any memory? Because over the years, it has been quite there were quite some occurrences where we were hit quite badly by, somebody changed code in the TM module, for instance, and introduced a memory leak there. And if you're not running this for like a couple of days at least, you're just not recognizing it, right? And you recognize it in production sooner or later, but that's a bit too late. And this is also why I believe that this would be a very interesting, part of the whole release process of the project, to really say, just make sure that we do the testing a bit more extensively, and that would be a very interesting addition to this project. And on the other side, since I'm building SipFront as a product, eating my own dog food and just making sure that if I cannot integrate this test solution into an actual project, then hope is quite low that nobody can do it. If I'm building this project. So that's
that's interesting, Andreas. I just can share a little bit of something that I've done. I think I don't know if you've seen it or not, but might be something that you might be interested to look at. I started a project called Voip Tests about a few years ago, I think 3 years ago. And what it does, it essentially does this not only for Camelio, but I'm trying to jump to GitHub here, but also for a bunch of other open source not bunch. Right now I have open SIPs and our own open source SIP stack. And it basically,
there we go.
Yeah, here it is. And what
So
it does is essentially sets up either Camelio or open SIPs or SIP, and runs a bunch of end-to-end scenarios, and it basically, as I said, it goes through Camellia, OpenSIPs, and 2 versions of our B2B UA. So yeah,
nice.
just to say, maybe if you're interested in looking into this, we can collaborate on
Absolutely.
some of your tests into this platform. Because right
Very
now,
nice.
what I'm doing, I'm basically testing it against pretty much all the versions of Camellia of any interest since version 4 up to the latest master. And also, as I said, it does pretty interesting stuff. Anyway, sorry to kind of interject, but we can talk about this.
I was going to just ask you, both Max and Liviu, whether you'd got any questions for Andreas on this new venture.
Yeah. I have a question about that product SipFront that you wanted to put it on OpenSIPIt'. Do you have any suggestions of how they want to handle it, and what is your expectations of this?
Yeah, no, I mean, on one hand, what's really interesting for me is, since I haven't participated in like an on-site SipIt event, nor the last OpenSIPIt, is really just to get like real life experience also how you guys are doing these kind of interop tests, the different companies working together, just to get also a better understanding of, the process and how it works. But more importantly, for me, what would be interesting is like from a product goal perspective, is also to create kind of test scenarios, like test packages. For instance, I was thinking of doing like IMS tests or interop tests for providers. So let's say in Germany we have this thing where when you want to connect to Deutsche Telekom, for instance, you need to run through a whole bunch of interop tests to check if numbers are correct, number formats, and all these kind of things. And it would be really cool for that side to create something like a test framework where if you, as for instance, as a SIP operator, telco operator, you're running OpenSIPs, for instance, and want to interconnect with Deutsche Telekom, that you can just basically at home, if you want so, run the whole test suite in an automated fashion, that you can enter this kind of interop testing, like the real one, with quite some confidence that it's going to pass, right? And basically the same holds true for more generic cases. And there, I was thinking of providing certain test cases on my side to do these SHA-256 authentication tests, for instance, right? So creating test cases where I'm preparing user agents, like or simulating user agents, which do all this kind of authentications. Like you guys said, you have 3 authentication headers. What happens if you're going to mix them up one way or the other, right? What happens if you're going to change the order of that, right? Is OpenSIPs or Camellia or Asterisk or whatever still able to, to do the authentication properly? So that would be that. Or on steer shaking, for instance, just making certain tests, automated tests, in an end-to-end fashion to, simulate a proxy and just send requests over to a system under test like OpenSIPs, and just tinker with, certain header fields and see what's going to happen, right? So just, providing predefined test cases that other people then in the future can use to verify their steer shaking implementation, for instance. Right? And I would really love to do this with you guys, just trying to prepare this at home and then trying to run my tests, like test my tests against certain situations. Right? Because in the end, I'm simulating, as I said, I'm simulating user agents, right? And they need to properly work as well, right? You have to have some confidence that what you implemented as a from a SipFront side is actually really standards compliant and is not providing false results for others then in the future. So that's basically the motivation, right? To say, you have a certain list of test cases and you just press a button and it runs them automatically, and in the end says, okay, according to my book, your implementation of stir shaking is correct, right? Something like this.
Okay.
Because in the end, I'm not sure how you're going to approach this test, and that would be really interesting for me. How are you going to verify the different scenarios, right? I mean, in the end, or the first thing would probably be to say, you set this up with the right certificates and everything, and the right numbers, and then you try to make a successful call, right? But in the end, the proper testing needs to also validate if the call is properly rejected, if somebody is tinkering with numbers, right? And all these kind of things, or if the certificate is wrong, or if the time is wrong, or if, whatever. And in the end, it would be really great from my perspective to have not only the correct implementations on the systems on the test, but also have a correct implementation of a test suite for people in the future to validate their new implementations.
Oh, yeah. And a question on this. Sorry if I interrupted.
No, carry on.
Yeah, okay, thank you, David. A question I have for you, Andreas. What part of this work is going to be open source? So, let's say you're building this test, and is it anything you're going to release after, or how it looks on your end?
What I'm using internally is basically SIP for load tests and SIP for functional tests and audio tests, right? So whatever I'm implementing there is in one way or the other going to be contributed back to this particular project, right? Because as of today, I think none of those two projects support SHA-256. Right, and none of them supports steer shaking. So I have to have quite soon some work to do in order to do this, and I would love to contribute this back to the project. Of course.
Well, you still have quite how many, like 3 weeks?
Right. Shouldn't be a problem, right?
Yeah.
It's lockdown here, anyways. I can't go anywhere. So.
Good news.
I've just been to Austria almost less than a year before the lockdown started.
Liviu, did you have any questions at all for Andreas?
Not that many questions, rather maybe some comments regarding our approach to testing and the event, and what is the most valuable thing to get out of it. And Andreas made a very good point, was that maybe it's not that important to just say, okay, I can build an identity properly, or I can authenticate someone else's identity, and both of our systems work, because in the end there are a lot more fine-grained tests to be had, and that is getting all of them right at the same time is what actually creates value in the implementation. So as far as our plans with the upcoming event, and what are we going to do in those maybe 3 + 3 hours, if I'm not mistaken, they're going to be 2 days, one after another, to define some scenarios that each of the teams are going to prepare ahead of time. So I guess that is quite important, rather than putting our implementations together and then be like, what are we going to test now, right? And maybe miss out on some essential things that are going to be relevant in a production system.
Yeah, you're hitting a very important point there, Liviu, that interop testing goes beyond seeing whether two things work together, doesn't it? It is how they. In fact, it would be better described as interaction testing than interop, because when two things work together, you can't go home. You've got to check the other scenarios.
Exactly. You have to exhaustively go through all the code paths, all the maybe possible ways of interpreting the RFC. Who knows what?
Yeah, and I believe, I mean, doing this manually is just a ton of work, and you might want to do this once, but maybe not twice or 3 times.
Yes.
And this is, I think, the value that I could bring to the table, to say, we know, you know, as a result of that, we have kind of like a test suite or test scenarios plus the support in SIP, for instance, with the scenarios that we could make publicly available so people can run this at home.
Yeah, I think just coming back to SipFront, one of the other innovations there, Andreas, was taking SIP and popping it in the cloud for these testing purposes.
Yeah, right. I mean, that was more like a learning scenario for me, because in the beginning, I didn't want to create like a company out of that. It was more like, you know, with SipWise, we were always pretty focused, you know, on bare metal stuff, right? So we didn't do a lot of containers, not a lot of Dockers, maybe for certain testing scenarios, but not cloud in a way that, you know, I didn't know a lot about AWS and things other than running an EC2 instance there, right? And that was quite an experience for me to say, you know, I don't want to build all these kind of things at home. I just want to try and see what's really available in terms of tools, basically, that AWS, for instance, or Google Compute provides, or Google Cloud. And it was very interesting, quite a steep learning curve, right? Getting, you know, Docker containers working in the cloud. But in the end, it was really interesting to say, you know, you can run like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 of these SIP instances somewhere, right? You just have to tell AWS how many, and that's about it. And then basically working or making them work together with some message queues, which I didn't have a lot of experience either. And just make sure that, you know, you can tell all of them to run things at the same time, and they're going to report back all the metrics at the same time, and then correlating all of that, you know, into one single result. That was really, really interesting for me, right? To have these kind of things in the cloud and in some way orchestrated. I played a bit with all these AWS technologies. They have like step functions, right? It was really interesting to see what's available. If you want to, you know, you have a couple of containers and you want them to do certain things at certain times and certain stages, and want to orchestrate them together. And they are like, it would, if you implement this from scratch, it would take you quite a while, and it was very interesting to, you know, to work with these solutions and really learn what's there with these solutions, because cloud before for me was, it's EC2, right? It was a virtual machine running somewhere, and that's about it. Yeah. And that quite expanded my view of this. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Great. No, thank you for explaining that. Gents, the thing that's still on my list to talk about is the possibility of an OpenSIPIt live event in Miami in June. But is there anything else you want to talk about before we get to that?
I'm all for it.
Okay, well, just to kind of give give a little bit of background. TMC, who organised an event called IT Expo, there you go. They've set up an event that's going to be the 22nd to the 25th of June in Miami Beach. As you know, Florida has been a bit more liberal than some of the other US states, and so they're very confident that it will go ahead as an in-person event. And one of the tracks in that conference is called Open Source World, which is specifically for people to come and talk about open source. And we've got a number of talks lined up there already. And I should say that I act for that editorially. I'm the person that coordinates, I chair the conference and coordinate the speakers and things like that. And I've been talking with TMC about the possibility of actually doing some kind of live OpenSIPIt event. And so that's as far as it's got so far. There's, you know, there's no commitments, there's no plans, nothing has been signed. But, you know, there's going to be a room at this Miami Beach Convention Center that's assigned for Open Source World, that I think would have some space where we could assemble some equipment and do some testing, if that was a realistic thing for people to get involved in. What do you think, Max?
I'm all for it. As I said, I have not been to Miami. Probably close to 10 years. Actually, that's the picture right now on the screen. That's from Miami. It's probably see some color. My color is a little bit dark on there. But
Right.
yeah, I have not been there. And it was actually IT Expo back then. I think we were on one of those events in Miami. Yeah, except June is quite probably. I don't know actually. I haven't been in June, but I remember summer is pretty tough there. So
Yeah, from a temperature point of view.
yeah. So if you're more like myself, more like somebody who comes from medium climate, it might be a little bit overheat. But they have good ACs there. So.
Yes. So
stay
yeah.
inside, yeah.
So as I mentioned, no firm plans there. But if people are watching this, they can go to OpenSIPIt'01 and find out more information about OpenSIPIt'01 that's coming up in April, the 12th to 14th. You can also go, if you Google IT Expo or Open Source World. Strangely, although it's called Open Source World, I think the URL is OpenSourceSummit.com or OpenSourceSummit.org or something like that. For that event, but there's more information. That's as I said, will go ahead as a conference, but there's the possibility of maybe having some kind of live interop Open SIPIt event there. And so if people do have ideas about participation in Open SIPIt, they should get in touch. There's a contact form, I believe, on OpenSIPIt'.org. And what other resources are available, Max, to people that are interested?
We have a couple of mailing lists. What we usually do, we create, there is a one mailing list or, well, Google group these days. We use Google Groups. I'm just trying to open it really quick here.
I have a question. Why did you go for the approach where you build a group for each event? Why not just have one OpenSIPIt group to begin with?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that has its, I guess, pros and cons, because people kind of come and go. Especially when we get to the numbers. So right now we have like 20 people almost registered in those groups for the next event. I mean, we expect it to be even bigger probably next time. So I feel a little bit of kind of we will eventually we'll get some people who are not really interested in following up. But
they can unsubscribe.
Yeah. Well, it's we can change that. I mean, it's all open. But it also just makes it a little bit easier to find information. Hopefully. Anywho, we can change it. I mean, it's just what I did. But anyway, just to go over, we have the Teams group, and there is also a long-running group which is called OpenSIPIt requests. And I believe basically if somebody has any questions, we open to receive anything on that end. Or you can just Google my email or David's email or Liviu's email and shoot us a mail if you have any ideas or any suggestions.
Yeah, I think everybody would agree that this whole project, exciting as it is a work in progress, and it's iterative, isn't it? As we go through things and improve them.
I still need to paint it. You see, already built it.
Good stuff. Okay, well, we've kind of got to the end of the list of the things that I thought we were going to talk about. But is there anything else we should be covering while we're here?
I think we covered everything. If Andreas maybe has any questions at this point, he can query us. In general, Andreas, I hope I will post some more updates this week, and also we will have more steer shaking planning next week. If you feel like you want to be part of that meeting, specifically on steer shaking, let us know now or later. Another thing that I wanted to suggest. I don't know how much are you familiar with Camellia steer shaking implementation, which I think they are actually
which of them?
We have two. No, I mean the thing is I'm not too familiar with steer shaking at all. I was just basically reading what's about, because it's not really popular it's not really used even in Europe, right? But that is for me a very good let's say opportunity to really read on that and just get my hands dirty.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at, if you know anybody in Camellia community who can help you as part of the OpenSIPIt', that definitely bring he or her in. There is a Camellia team right now a little bit understaffed, I would say, especially considering that you have also will have probably play two hands as your SipFront interest. It would be probably a good idea to have at least one other person who can manage.
Yeah, I have to check anyways with Ole on how or what exactly he's going to do with that. I think you already mentioned that it's not right, or it's not yet clear exactly on his role there. Daniel Miela was also mentioning that he might drop in at some point. So we are still under discussion at the moment how we are going to handle this properly. Yeah. But it's me alone would be a little bit too understaffed, I think.
Right. Good news. Well, we're grateful for your participation. Max, are we thinking that there will be another SIP Chronicles before OpenSIPIt' on the 12th of April, or is the next one going to be afterwards?
I don't know, David. Really, it's taken a lot of time, and I mean I enjoy doing it and all that, but organizationally it might be a little bit too hot for me. So I could not promise. We'll try, but
yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, look, Max and Liviu, thank you very, very much for everything you've done in getting OpenSIPIt' going and participating, and of course for the SIP Chronicles broadcast as well. There's a lot of work that goes into that behind the scenes. And Andreas, thank you very much for joining us today. Any closing comments from anybody before we turn things off?
No, again, thanks, Andreas. It was nice meeting you face to face, as good as it gets.
Screen to screen
nowadays. But at least, I heard a lot of stuff about you and your work. Obviously, is well known. So I was always curious about meeting you and having a conversation. So we're definitely looking at you helping us and participating in OpenSIPIt', and thank you for coming up with your time, and definitely looking forward for a good experience out of it.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for setting this up, and thanks for letting me join. So I'm really curious about the event in itself and learning how we're going to do this. Yeah, I think that would be. I believe that it will be of value for everybody to have this event, and let's see where it goes from there. Be great.
Great news. Okay, well, Liviu, all the best to you.
Let me say a couple of words as well, because
please do.
I'm also excited to have met Andreas in webcam, and I only knew Andreas from the Git logs from the project, right? Because from his commits in, I don't know, 2005 to 2006 and onwards. Yeah. So.
Right.
And it was great learning about SipFront. I had no idea you were working on it, and it really sounds like something that I was thinking about for quite a while now, and it's great to see it happen. It is I don't know, an engineer's approach to testing, right?
Exactly.
You have I don't know how to say it. You have engineers and then you have coal miners, right? I mean, no offense to the workers, but you know, it's our work at OpenSIPIt', you know, kind of resembles the okay, let me stop there.
Wow, you just got us.
So you either automate it or you don't, right?
Yeah.
So I believe that's kind of the path we should be heading towards, right?
Exactly.
All the testing should be in code. We should code a test. Yeah.
I mean, what I'm trying to do is basically what I always wanted myself. Now I had the opportunity to do this, and it was the same with SipWise back then. I was working at a telco operator where we built our own soft switch using SARE back then, 096 or something. And you know, when I left, then I really said, you know, I really want to productize what we just, you know, somehow managed to craft together there and get it out of the market, or get it into the market, because there are for sure people who might want this, right? And basically the same with SipFront. I always wanted to have a proper test framework, and I just never was able to get one, right? I think when David, when we were chatting some time ago in one of the events, I told you, right? I desperately wanted to try, what was it called? This test solution that existed like 10 years ago from Spire and Abacus. I wanted to buy a Spire and Abacus on eBay, because, you know, I've wrote them a couple of times, you know, give me a quote for a Spire and Abacus. I want to do proper load testing. And they just never even answered, not even getting a quote or something. So I wanted to buy something even on eBay, and it just didn't work. Yeah. So I really feel the pain of everybody doing, you know, this SIP testing. And yeah, this time around, I'm trying to, you know, to solve this for myself and for all the others.
Yeah, good thing about testing, you cannot overdo it. Like, so, having even those Voip tests that we put around, we're just scratching the surface. So, you know, the space is absolutely ridiculously huge. So definitely looking forward to integrate some of that work in one of our open source projects, if not nothing else.
No, thanks for mentioning that, because I didn't know about Voip Test, and it looks exactly what I was looking for. And I'm going to check how you guys are doing that, and maybe we can do something together on that front.
Yeah, it would be totally cool. I've been pushing it myself for several years. But at the same time, it was very helpful, the work the Liviu mentioned before. I built specific test case for specifically for that work based on that framework. And it was very good, very helpful to find implementation bugs, crashes, and all that. There are probably a few more of those, but we will get them on OpenSIPIt', hopefully. Yeah, cool.
Good. Okay, it sounds like it's time to say goodbye. So to you, Liviu, thank you very much for coming along and everything you've done so far, and all the best to everybody in OpenSIP's land. And to Maxim, everybody at SIPI Labs over there. And Andreas, thank you very much for joining us. Great to have you along, and you can see that it all sort of keys in quite well to everything that's going on. And so thank you for watching, and thank you for joining us here on SIP Chronicles. We will be back before too long with something else, but we'll say bye-bye for now.
Thank you for your David. Thank you for your David.
Thank you, David.
All the best.
Thank you, David. Thanks, everyone.
Guys, yeah, be in touch.
Cheers, guys. Bye.